want the ability to choose. Choice is freedom. It's opportunity to get to decide what happens to you and when and how and why. But it's not just the choice to do something. Sometimes choice means choosing not to do something. And that's okay too. That's good. Sometimes when you're confronted with a lot of crazy choices, the best thing to do is nothing. I think about this a lot when it comes to family. Who becomes the keeper of inherited secrets? The stories we choose to share with each other. What gets passed down from generation to generation? What do we decide to keep to ourselves? Do we choose to omit things? Like maybe we don't talk about something because we know that even a mention of it is going to terribly hurt someone we love or blows someone else's life up. Like if you explore all your family secrets and you let that horse out of the barn, you can never get it back. Is it always worth it? I don't have the answer for that. Just something I'm exploring personally. What is liberating for one person to open up about could wound another person. My grandfather, who I dearly loved, left my grandmother, who I also dearly loved when I was just a little girl. He moved to another town with his former secretary, but my grandmother was extremely Catholic. So despite living separate new lives for decades, they never divorced. I mean, believe me, he begged her for a divorce, and she was like, no, thank you. I would prefer if our marriage would hound you to the gates of hell. And he was like, okay, I understand. But my grandfather lived his new life in his new town with his new, I want to say bride, but they never got married because of the aforementioned non-divorce. There really is no word for that. But he pretended to be married to this woman for the rest of his life because it felt important to him for the time where he lived, some vestige from his long repressed Catholic schoolboy self. Like openly living in sin was not really an option, and that was a really big secret. So one day I was walking with my granddad and we visited the grave of the woman he had been pretending to be married to the whole time, which I really didn't know. And because some secrets you take literally to the grave, he had put his last name on her tombstone. That secret was important to him to keep. One final, no, it's fine. We're totally married. There it was. It was engraved in marble. Not just a choice. That is a very expensive choice. And I thought about it for a minute, and then I decided that I would just go ahead and keep that secret for him. Nobody needed to know that. What would that have accomplished? This is Choice Words. I'm Samantha Bee, and today I talked to two incredible actors who also happen to be mother and daughter, Diane Ladd and Laura Dern. They've worked together on films like Wild at Heart, remember that campy David Lynch movie with Nicolas Cage? And shows like the HBO series Enlightened. Well, Laura and her 87-year-old mother recently made the choice to write a book together called Honey, Baby Mine. And it got me thinking about family and family secrets and how we choose to protect our family and ourselves if we choose to do that. So take a listen and make good choices.
So great to see you.
It's so great to see you. And Diane, hello. Thank you both so much for agreeing to speak with me today. I feel like the luckiest person in the world right now. I really do.
Well, we feel so lucky. So thank you for having us.
That's a great feeling.
We're going to talk like crazy about your book, which I absolutely loved. So we're going to get deep into conversation about that. I have to tell you both that I prepared for this interview in a million different ways, but also by watching one of my favorite shows in existence, which was Enlightened, which you were both in, and I miss it. It was so good.
Oh, we
Oh
miss it too.
boy. Oh boy. Amy Jericho is one of my favorite characters that has ever graced the
Uh-huh.
television screen.
I loved being her. Mike White's writing is so incredible, and Mom
Yeah.
is, especially as you've shared my experience of my mother as a mother through this
Mm-hmm.
book,
Mm-hmm.
how incredible she is and enlightened, because it
Oh
is
boy.
so the polar opposite of the mother she is.
Yes.
So it's just
Oh,
incredible to remember our times doing that.
it must have been so fun doing
It
that.
was
Just
incredible.
so fun. Okay, so let me just set you up a little bit because this show is all about, choices, how huge ones and little tiny ones and all the ones in between shape our lives, such as the choice to collaborate on a book with your parent, which is a big choice that a lot of us probably wouldn't be able to make. So, are there choices for each of you that you so clearly look back on and you're like, that's the one? That's the choice that completely changed everything for me.
I don't think it was so much of a choice
Mm-hmm.
as just following along a path that was opening to us with an opportunity we didn't understand. We was kind of forced upon us. You talked about Enlightened.
Mm-hmm.
That beautiful dog in
Right.
Enlightened was named Ginger, that King Charles Cavalier.
Mm-hmm.
Laura, you love Ginger.
Yes.
A sweet picture. She, when we left the show, my grandchildren said, "Nana, you got to get that dog."
Really?
And I said, "Oh, honey, Nana's not going to get. That's a $5,000 trained dog. Are you kidding me?" And the owner, the trainer heard me and said, "Diane, as a matter of fact, Ginger's going deaf, and we won't be able to use her anymore. And we're looking for a home. We're going to give her to anyone who would give her a good home, and she loves you." I already had two dogs,
Right.
and so I took Ginger,
Mm-hmm.
and she was one of the highlights of our life, right, Laura?
She really was.
And
Yeah.
she
Wow.
was like a child. She would crawl up on the bed and put her head on my shoulder like a little girl and just, oh.
Mm.
And the tragedy is that she went out at midnight one night and there was dew on the grass already. And what I didn't know is there was 10 pesticide poisons on that grass that had been spraying for 3 years, making
Wow.
me ill. And I didn't know it. And Ginger came back in after 10 minutes of getting it on her paws,
Mm-hmm.
and she had 3 seizures, one after another. And she died
No.
fully in my arms. And her
What?
death saved my life. The enlightened dog gave me enlightenment because of her death, I found out the glyphosate was in my body and killed her.
Oh.
She gave up her life to save mine.
Yeah, we knew, we certainly knew what was happening to Mom,
Mm-hmm.
and that the scarring on her lungs was this environmental damage from these poisons, these
Right.
petrochemicals. So that was, it's interesting. I loved your question asking about the choices we make, because
Mm-hmm.
as you said, Mom, it's a path based on what happens in our life and
Mm-hmm.
how we can transform our experiences and dive deeper.
Right. Right. Because that's the origin story of the whole book is that you were misdiagnosed.
I wasn't diagnosed. I was not. I had not. Didn't have a diagnosis, but I had glyphosate
Mm-hmm.
and a damatol, which causes, they say, Parkinson's in my blood, among other poisons. A lot of people, tons of people, are walking around with glyphosate in their blood
Right.
from the air.
Right.
Yeah. And I think, what I think the great misdiagnosis, perhaps, or
Mm-hmm.
misunderstanding here was, what was happening to Mom was true,
Right.
that there was scarring on her lungs was true,
Mm-hmm.
that the only thing they could offer her was, in order to help her, if she could expand her lung capacity and
Right.
breathe and therefore take walks, that might be helpful, a kind
Right.
of therapy. But the misdiagnosis, thank God, was when the doctor, said to me, as my
Mm-hmm.
mom was witness, but he was whispering to me to the side with her in earshot, be gentle with your mom. She'll be dead in 3 to 6 months.
So for people who are listening to this who don't know about the origin of the book, so you received this terrible prognosis for your mom's health.
Yes.
And you took it upon yourself to counteract that terrible prognosis by going for these walks.
Exactly.
Mhm.
There was one challenge other than my mom's health in general. And Mom, what is that?
I don't like walking.
Sure.
So for Laura, this was a challenge to force me to walk.
So how did Laura convince you to walk? How did she get you up and moving?
Laura, you can tell that one, honey.
Well, I think it's easy, for any listener even, you can hear that Mom is a storyteller
Mhm.
and she loves truth. She
Mhm.
likes the idea of digging deeper, as
Right.
a principal, certainly as an actor and an artist. And so my thought process just was to distract her, I'll get her telling stories. And after even the first couple of walks, even though the walks were only a few minutes, I realized she started sharing stories or an anecdote or
Mhm.
some funny thought. And I said, you know what? Let me archive these for your grandchildren. And I'm going to record them on my phone because we both believed that she may only have a few months to live.
Right.
And so I think Mom's longing to tell the truth, was fed also by this prognosis.
Mhm.
But I just loved getting her distracted, but also taking this rare privilege to really know each other.
Right.
And parents don't always tell their children the truth. We lie to our children because
Right.
we want to be loved, respected, and adored. So there's things we do not tell our children.
Mhm.
And then our children, they also want to be
Right.
loved and respected and adored. So they don't always tell us the truth. There's things they don't tell us. So here we are trying to communicate and not telling each other the truth or asking the right questions or listening with the ear of our heart. So in this case, because we thought I might be dying when
Mhm.
we believed I was dying, we didn't know how long, tomorrow, the next day, a week, 3 months, that
Mhm.
we just spilled the beans.
Right.
So my suggestion is everybody should spill the beans while they can.
Did you feel like, because I sometimes feel like when you're walking, just the movement of your legs, it like lubricates your soul. You're not really facing each other. Sometimes it's easier to be truthful.
Yeah, that's beautifully put. And Mom and I haven't talked about that enough, but that's absolutely true. There's something about being in motion and
Mhm.
being in nature that just inspires conversation
Mhm.
and perhaps truth.
Yeah.
But yeah, instead of like this face off of now we're going to tell each other,
Yes. Sitting across the table from each other.
exactly.
If you meet a stranger on a plane, you sometimes tell them your deepest secrets
You
because
do.
you think you'll never meet that person again.
That's right.
But another way is if you would take a minute and put a blanket out on the grass with your
Mhm.
grandchild or sister or friend or mother and hold
Mhm.
hands and just look at the sky and talk to each other. Find yourself having the most wonderful sharing. Try it. It's wonderful.
We'll be right back with Laura Dern and Diane Ladd after this. The clarity and the honesty in this book it is incredibly moving. It's really the most amazing journey that I feel like, I know that neither of you know me, but I feel like I know you really well now. It's so intimate, and you also argue in the book, and it's very real. It's very truthful. And I guess, how did you decide which pieces that you wanted to put in the book? How did you kind of curate the conversations for the book? Or is everything just the book?
No, we selected. We worked very
Mm-hmm.
hard But we when we got through, we had about 420 pages
Oh, wow.
had to go through. It was a great deal of
Mhm.
work, and we spent over a year and a half trying to be fair and honest and utilize the truth. And
Mhm.
being actresses, a lot of times writers have had us improvise, or because improvisation will give you a rare truth.
And I think what was fascinating about our own, self-edit process was this all evolved because of how it impacted us. Not just did our relationship deepen,
Mhm.
not just did our family members and loved ones that we would share our journey with start to say, oh my God, that inspired me. I just asked my sister, my best friend, my husband things I'd never asked.
Mhm.
But mom got better.
Right.
And so we realized that there is literal healing
Right.
embedded in this journey. And when we decided to share it,
Mhm.
I think what we wanted was not for us to be known, but for the journey to be known.
Right.
And that, we're 4 years later sharing with you today our experience, hoping that it will impact other relationships. In seemingly the most mundane ways. Some of the most fun we had was asking each other the simplest of questions,
Right.
but questions I never asked, like, what's the first movie you ever saw?
Ah.
Who were the first artists that ever impacted you?
Mhm.
How do you, as this little girl in a tiny town in Mississippi, know you have to find your way to New York and LA to be an actor?
Right.
And yet, of course, the hardest things we sometimes move away from asking because we don't want to hurt our loved ones by bringing up difficult things. But my God, we don't even ask the simplest of things from our loved ones.
Right. It's so true because you do get caught. I mean, I'm a mom too. I have 3 kids, and you get so caught in just kind of like your day-to-day existence
Yeah.
that those bigger philosophical questions, you don't even think to ask. It's just something you're like, I think I know this
Mm-hmm.
somewhere.
Yeah.
You think you already know it, but you don't know any of it.
Yeah.
You forget things along the way, the
Yeah.
little things that are the most important pinnacles. Let me explain that before this happened to me,
Hmm.
aside from being an actress in my life, I also had gotten a degree in nutrition from Florida State University, and I had gotten a degree in psychology, a 7-year study,
Hmm.
because of my own interest. And so I found myself through life's path being forced to be involved in medicine to a point that I discovered that I'm an intuitional healer, and I work with doctors volunteering for 20 years to go into hospitals and help heal other human beings.
Hmm.
Acupuncture, acupressure. I mean, there are things that help the body that we've just not paid attention to. So all of that was in me. And when this tragedy happened, the desire to look at alternative modalities, certain vitamins, medicines, herbs, all came into play, which helped me. But the pinnacle was that one day, Laura had me going from one bench to another.
Yeah.
And as I got up, my shoelace was untied. And she bent down real quickly to tie my shoelace.
Hmm.
And I said, honey, you don't have to tie my shoelaces. And she looked up at me with her beautiful blue eyes and said, why not, mother? You tied mine when I was growing up so many times. Let it be my turn. And I started to cry.
Yeah.
The love in that action
Yes.
is more important than any herb or anything you could take to heal yourself. Because we do have the
Yes.
power to help heal ourselves. Because women, particularly, we carry grief above the breast. We carry grief there,
Hmm.
right there. And when we're hurt, we hold on to that grief in the lungs. And it was my lungs, I think, had a great deal of lifetime of certain tragedy or tragedies
Hmm.
in the lungs that we all women, as mothers and friends and human beings, men too, but women even more than men, hold that grief in the breast, the giving breast of love.
Isn't it so funny that these little moments that you recall, like your shoelace being untied, and Laura reaching down to tie your shoelace. Like, I remember when my grandmother was in the hospital, I came to the hospital. We were very close. I was partially raised by my grandmother, so there's a similarity there. And I remember just painting her nails when she was in the hospital because it was so important to her.
Yes.
I'll never forget it. Just those little kernels, those tiny moments.
I also think, I'm fascinated that we don't talk about the hardest things because we
Yes.
feel that talking about them will hurt each other. And so, I'll give two examples. Certainly in this book, the fact that my single mom raised me after going through a divorce, that I would go through a divorce, be very close to my mother, be with my mother through that process, and never ask my mom about divorce.
Right.
Or never talk about the pain of divorce. Just the pain and figuring out how you want to take care of your kids, the fear of holding your kids closely and not wanting them to be hurt by something like that just struck me so deeply. And I think as women, we often avoid the most traumatic of situations because many of us are bred to believe we've got to hold it together,
Right,
for the kids, for the family, and our workplace environment. And you just, when you said that about your grandmother, I had a flash, that I don't talk about in the book, but it moved me so much, which was when my grandma went through a heartbreaking loss and she got the news someone she loved had passed. I came in to sit with her. And at the moment she found out that her loved one had passed away, she immediately opened her purse and started putting lipstick on. And I will never forget that visual, like that something innate in her was like, I've got to keep myself together. Like I've got to present as that I'm okay. I can handle this, even for herself. And I remember being so moved by it, but also like that stayed with me. And I think for Mom and I, it was about like taking the mask off. And
right.
I'll never forget at the very first walk we took, I kind of delicately thought, okay, maybe engage Mom in a silly story about that time Belina and I were swimming in the pool and pretending we were mermaids and Mom was laughing so hard. So I was like, Mom, should we talk about the time? And just as I'm presenting a silly story, my mom goes, no, I know what I want to talk about. She said, death. And I remember laughing so hard because, by the way, she was like, yeah, somebody said you might die in 3 months. Like, why aren't we talking about it? Are you afraid of death? Are you scared of losing me? What does death look like? What does it evoke? What's our greatest fear? What makes us laugh about the fact that we're all obsessed with this greatest fear? As Mom, you say, what do you say that Papa always said to you?
He said you didn't worry about being born, and that happened, and you can bet your bottom boot death will happen too. So instead of worrying about it, just worry about living. Let's just take one day at a time and try to fill it with laughter and love and learning and do the best you can. And that's it.
Yeah.
Just to change tacks for one sec, I definitely was surprised to learn that your teenage dog got her first period on Scott Baio.
True.
That was an astonishing revelation to me.
That's true. That is true. And I heard tell that he shared that he remembers it.
He does?
Yeah.
Oh my goodness.
I don't know if he knows the trauma I was feeling over it, but
He was in a beautiful white suit. He looked glorious. And he said, I love dogs. And she got up on his lap. And stained his beautiful suit.
Nothing spreads it around like club soda.
Oh my God.
I don't know who started that myth.
Oh God. Oh God. Help us all.
Yeah.
Laura, you ran and got club soda to try to clean the material.
I can barely talk about it.
Yeah.
Let's move on. I'm getting shaky.
Oh boy. Oh, yeah. There's more with Laura Dern and Diane Ladd in just a moment. I think the three of us are all working women and moms. We're all working mothers when our kids were young as well. And Laura, you've talked a lot about the need to not feel guilty about that. How hard is that to learn for you? Have you released that from yourself?
Let's start by saying for families who, even with holding down 3 jobs, cannot make ends meet, particularly at this time in our country, feeling guilty is already a luxury.
Right. Oh, yeah.
And so I came to feeling guilty, honestly, in being a child who felt sad and missed my mom and was lonely. And that's the thing that was so healing in our walks, is starting to talk about the experience I had that at the time I felt guilty to share and didn't want my mom to feel bad because I knew her work was important to her and she was needing to pay the rent. But talking about both experiences and both sides of the experience was really healing. But I do think about every parent who has to leave to pay the rent and do their work.
Right.
We worry constantly, all of us. And, we worry in small ways. We worry about how it's impacting our kids. And now we worry because we can't even trust that our kids are safe at school. So we are in endless anxiety. And I think all we want is to make sure we have the value of imprinting our children with love, with radical acceptance, and with understanding and inspiration. And, it doesn't always take quantity, but we know it takes the quality of time and listening. And in busy lives, in overwhelm, in worry about money, relationship, it's hard to remember, even when you have 5 minutes with your kid, to really check in, to really help them get away from the noise and hope that they feel safe enough to talk to you.
The irony here is that at my age now, 87, I am looking back, and I think as you get older, there is a blessing, a thing that happens. The first part, it's like your life's divided into 3 parts.
Right.
The first part, it's like, go, 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 go. What are you going to do? Where are you going to go? What are you going to do? Then there's the second part where it's, let's raise a family. Let's get it done. But the third part comes in no matter what you're doing. And I'm still a working actor. And so I'll never stop working. But the irony is that as you get older, it's like looking at a horse with the blinders on it. They put the blinders on the horse so it runs straight with focus. Boom, 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 boom. Well, as life goes on and you get older, there's a gift here that the blinders that you've put on yourself suddenly start to come off. And you begin to truly see what they call the big picture. The big picture of life is amazing. You may not have had time when you were younger or the opportunity to see that big picture. So I think I was so busy trying to keep it together that when I tried to have time with Laura, I tried to make it quality time. But I think I would rationalize, which I did with her, about not being with her. Like, look, I'm giving you piano lessons. Or look, you get to do this. Or look, like a machine. And it's only now at this age, now I'm feeling guilty, which is one of the reasons I wanted to work so hard on the book, is now I look back and think, oh, I could have done this. I could have done that. And then I know that no matter what I would have done, you can't go shoulda, woulda, coulda, because if you hadn't have done what you did, you think you made a mistake. A mistake is to take something and miss the mark. Well, I can promise you, whatever that is that you're still guilty about, if you hadn't have done that and you'd have done something else, you'd have still probably missed the mark. You make choices and you have to go with this and do the best you can.
Yeah.
And it's really hard to be the grown-up, right? It's really hard when you are with a child in pain that needs to share their pain or attack. you know, and it's really hard to be the adult and respond in a loving adult way.
Mhm.
I mean, we're all learning that, and sadly, yeah, sometimes it doesn't happen until your kids are older that you go, oh God, I could have helped them avoid feeling so
Mhm.
much.
I feel like with because I'm 53 now, so kind of in the menopause years, perimenopause, menopause, not to turn this over to menopause, but it is a different time. Like the third of your life lived in and after menopause is like such a different stage of life, because as you're saying, you're raising your children, you're working, you're in your earning years, you're just like, it's like go, go, go all the time. And then you kind of hit this stage of life where you're like, what?
That's
Wait,
fine. That's fine.
hold on. I don't think I have sat down for 10 years.
Yeah.
Like, you know what I mean?
I mean, all of that
Mhm.
baloney that we like women put on
Yeah.
the lipstick, the world will be the path to your door if you use the right color lipstick. Excuse me, say what?
Mhm.
Or the right perfume. Excuse me. And we've given ourselves so many games to hide who we are that when you get older, you
Right.
take a moment, start ripping the games off, rip them off, drop them.
Right.
And I remember at the birth of social media, people talking about how, it warning signs of how dangerous it could be for teenage girls to
Mhm.
compare themselves to the false narrative of what other people were posting, to the number of likes, to this idea of who they were and what their exciting world looked like. And then we all did it. Every
Right.
age,
Mhm.
every generation, suddenly we were all hooked to a false narrative,
Right.
to this false belief of what made someone lovable or
Right.
successful, or that their life looked better than ours. And it's it's so devastating
Mhm.
that what happened to us in middle school is now the moniker of how we measure our
Right.
life and our lifestyle today at every age. So just as you're saying, we're coming into this moment in life where we should feel that there can be time for reflection and new inspiration and teaching and self-discovery. I feel like now at every age, everybody's like, oh my God, I'm not doing enough. Oh my God, I
Right.
need to be out there more. Oh my God, life is passing me by. These people are on a trip.
Right.
Those people look amazing at 73 or
Mhm.
what, you know what I mean? Like whatever it is, they look 20, so everybody
Right.
is creating this rush to be a thing
Right.
that is an artificially invented narrative. So we need it more than ever. We need to come back to ourselves.
Coming off of that, like, I guess, how do you define success then? Like, what is your definition of success? You've both done all of these incredible things. What does that mean to you? How does that word resonate with you now?
Mom, do you have your answer? I don't want to.
At my age, for me, I mean, each person has their own journey. But for me, I believe that we have a destiny fulfillment.
Hmm.
Maybe your destiny is just to learn how to plant a beautiful rose or to cook a certain meal. Different people have different destinies and things that they
Hmm.
feel intuitively that they maybe came to earth to do. Maybe it's to learn the meaning of love or to learn how to work hard or to learn discipline or discernment. I call them Diane's divine D's. So success is completing somehow what you're attempting to do. Even if you don't have success in what you're attempting to do, if you try to do it, to me, that's success. If I try to do something and it doesn't happen now how I planned for it,
Right.
then maybe there's a good reason why it's not happening. Maybe I'm being protected instead of hurt. I feel like anybody who has a dream, don't give up on your dream. If it's meant for you to have it,
Mm.
because what's that song about? Thank God for unfulfilled visions or something, for unfulfilled dreams, because you don't know what would happen. Emerson, the great Emerson philosopher, used to say, be careful what you wish for. You may get it. Okay. So we better kick a little dirt. I call it Kick a Little Dirt. That's the name of my company, Kicking a Little Dirt. And we better kick a little dirt and get it better for other people while there's breath in and out of us to use for ourselves. That is
Hear,
success.
hear.
Sorry, I'm getting carried away now because you're getting my passion, Sam.
I agree with you. Oh boy. Oh yes.
So there's the meaning of success, okay? Kick a little dirt. It's my motto. Kicking a little dirt.
That's Southern wisdom.
My great grandmother, her name was Aunt Prudy.
Mm-hmm.
But the thing is, Aunt Prudy, my great grandmother, was a healer, and she was a humdinger.
Mm-hmm.
And they didn't have any money down south. She was a pioneer. She got married at 16, and they didn't have a doctor. So she got in a horse and buggy and went to New Orleans. She went into the library and she took all their medical books, which was wrong. But nevertheless, she took them and went back to Mississippi where they didn't have any medical books. And she taught herself to be a midwife and a healer. And she delivered 3,000 babies before
3,000 babies.
That's right. That's right. In her lifetime. And one time we do get snow in Mississippi. And one time a horse threw her. And she actually broke her leg and crawled back on that horse and went and delivered that baby and then had her leg set. She was only 5 feet 2 little thing, and she was a humdinger. She was a humdinger.
Boy, I'm hearing that we should have a mission we should have put purpose in your life.
Purpose keeps you alive,
Yeah, everybody needs purpose in their life.
My daughter gave me the purpose to walk.
Yeah.
And in walking, like, Mom, come on, breathe. Get that air in and out. Come on, her love. What healed me? The best alternative modality is love itself. And when you're acting, you are 1,000 emotions you go through, but there's basically only 2. One is love,
right,
and the other is a lack of love. Because where there's lack, fear enters, and after fear comes anger, and after anger comes hatred. And so it's love or a lack of love. And my daughter, on those walks, she filled me with love, the love of my own child. My daughter, my beautiful Laura, filled me with her love to help my life, to help me breathe. And let me tell you something, honey, it worked. It's the best medicine. Better than castor oil. Hello.
A lot better than castor oil. A lot smoother going down.
Your love is better than castor oil.
There you go.
Oh, I'm
There's
feeling a hit. Yeah.
But it's true. Your book is like one loving touch. I mean, it really, you feel it. You feel it. It emanates from the book in such a meaningful way. Who's gonna play both of you in the adaptation? You're gonna play yourselves. You got to make a movie.
We've been playing ourselves for a long time, honey.
Yeah, exactly.
Oh boy. Well, I just have to thank both of you for speaking with me today. I just think your book is great. I love the projects that you do together. I mean, you're just a living example of what a real, truthful relationship can be, what it can look like, imperfectly perfect. I took a lot away from it, and I've taken a tremendous amount away from this conversation, and I'm just sitting here in full gratitude. So thank you so much.
Well, we do from you as an incredible guide. You are such a beautiful voice, and I am so grateful for you and celebrating the book with us, but also just the way you phrase things is so moving to me. Just in the imperfectly perfect conversation about living and parenting and learning about ourselves as women. You're such an inspiration. So thank you so much.
Thank you so much.
God bless you. Thank you so much.
That was Laura Dern and Diane Ladd, and I had no choice but to Google one thing after that conversation. Look, I'm not a novice when it comes to menstruation. I'm no dummy. I know dogs get their periods, but it did sort of get me thinking, how did dogs manage that? Or rather, I'm sorry, how did dog owners manage that? Do they, please tell me they don't make dog tampons. I'm not into it, okay? What kind of Ben & Jerry's do dogs eat? And you know what? It turns out they make dog pads. I mean, it's basically a doggy diaper, but isn't that kind of what a human pad is too? Anyway, I'm positive this is not where you thought this podcast was going. Sorry, everyone. Thank you, Laura and Diane, for coming on. And good news, there's more Choice Words with Lemonada Premium. Subscribers get exclusive access to bonus content like a rapid-fire round of trivia questions based off this interview. Subscribe now in Apple Podcasts. Thank you for listening to Choice Words, which was created by and is hosted by me. We're a production of Lemonada Media. Catherine Barnes, Svea Baron-Reinstein, and Chrissy Pease produce our show. Our mix is by James Sparber. Steve Nelson is the Vice President of Weekly Content. Jessica Cordova-Kramer, Stephanie Whittles-Wax, and I are executive producers. Our theme was composed by Scylla Shaman with help from Johnny Vince Evans. Special thanks to Kristen Everman, Claire Jones, Ivan Karayev, and Rachel Neal. You can find me at IamSamB on Twitter and at RealSamB on Instagram. Follow Choice Words wherever you get your podcasts or listen ad-free on Amazon Music with your Prime membership.